to the explosion of sexy tech, there are a lot of integration issues that actually cause more problems for the staff in the back end because systems don't talk to each other. So you can have a booking engine, you can have a restaurant system, you can have a spa system, you can have guest messaging. There are so many shiny, excellent tools out there, but it actually causes some pain points for the staff in the back to try and hook them up, especially when it comes to payments. So I guess my focus, if you were asking me right now, I'd be looking at the guest experience, what improves the communication, what improves conversion, and what ultimately improves your brand position. If you've got a nice, straightforward way of improving that guest experience, making the booking path easier, then I'm all for that. So is it going to make a difference to your top line sales? What impact does it have on the staff? And that would be what I'd be challenging my vendors to consider and give me the answers for.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, sorry, go ahead, B. Jump in.
No, it's like the analogy for me is like very often we're trying to patch things like to get to where we want, and this it can work, but it's not really good for the long term. So it's more like, okay, instead of like putting some bandages here and here and here, and it will look good ultimately, but it's not going to be handy. It's not going to be easy. Probably it's going to cost you more. So it's like how to make sure that this is not happening, and that whatever decision you don't take it just for your department because, I don't know, you're in charge of digital and you want to implement something for your Meta, for example, or you're in operations and you want to input something for, I don't know, like whatever your app or your ordering app, etc. So it's very often still in hotels, well, depending if it's small or bigger properties, but like different people that are taking different decisions and not consulting each other. So you end up with something that just doesn't make sense when you really look from the outside.
Yeah. And what I was going to say before, I think, Suzanne's point about maybe creating more issues for your staff is a key one, because obviously ROI is a big thing with any tech decisions when it comes to to hotels, and could be a big reason why some properties aren't seeing the ROI on it, because you haven't thought this process through. It's now created more issues for your staff, and they're like, I'm not going to use it. So then you have no ROI at all. It's not even functional. Christiane, good to see you back. So we will. You left us on pins and needles here. We listened to Spice Girls the whole time you were gone.
Because, sorry, I lost track of what was the next question, but I'm back.
Okay. We were discussing what tips or what parts of the guest journey, what problems are you looking to solve at the property level when trying to decide what technology to use?
Okay. Yeah, I would go with what Sara said earlier, that what I hear a lot from hoteliers is that I don't want another screen, right? Because then they have maybe their revenue, their distribution, their operational systems, etc. And even if they are partially integrated, sometimes they feel like they can't look rates in one place, distribution in another place, operations in another place, etc. So I think there is a tendency, and there should be a tendency of trying to consolidate in, if possible, in one place, all the different tech that you need, right? It's not always easy because it depends of who is collaborating, who is doing what, etc., and also what I need. But I think this is a tendency that we see and should be something very useful, especially as there are so many things available nowadays in the market. And you have to decide kind of who to go with and what you need, etc. So I think that would be one of the points I would say is important.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think is a common theme around all the answers is really picking doing your research and picking the technology that's going to fit the problem you're looking to solve, and not just picking what is the flashiest or the first one to kind of come across your plate. Sara, we'll go back to you on this one. I've seen personally, I've worked with quite a few clients over the past couple of years that are people that have been in the hospitality space and now developing technology, which kind of makes it better, or at least in theory makes it better for the properties, because they should understand your pain points and all of these things that we're bringing up and this journey and of what you're actually trying to do. What are your thoughts on some of these newer technologies that are coming out versus what has been around? Is there any preferences for properties to go with?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think when it comes to technology and even taking the concept of dating technology, right? You want it to be an experience for you. And again, it might look sexy, but maybe it's if it's not useful, if you don't feel the attraction after the first date, then you want to make sure that you go out on date number 2, 3, and build a stable and trusting relationship with it from that moment onwards. There's a lot of technology out there that's coming up. You know, there's again, just like with dating, you can swipe all you want, but really all that you're looking for is that one piece of technology that you want to keep dating and really commit to for a longer term, because that's in the end what's going to help you make sure that your vision and your strategy that you have for your hotel comes to fruition. You need some stability. If changing technology is can be a mammoth task. I mean, changing PMSs can really disrupt your operations from all levels in a hotel, because then you have to the educational piece, making sure that everybody at your property knows how to use it, because it can then have a negative impact on the guest experience. So it is really quite a large effort. So you really want to make sure that as I mentioned earlier, that you are using systems where even though it might address some of your operational issues, you want to make sure that also the technology is there. That it is technology that can really again speak with your other systems, that it has integration abilities. And there's a lot of systems out there that are coming up with you as the hotel. It's like a blank slate where you can build it however you want to build it. So, for example, with going back to the topic of APIs, which we've discussed in a separate webinar, there's some systems that allow you to pick however you want to categorize your data. And while I think it's great, there are other systems that don't allow you to do that, or for some purposes you need that category or that decision of how to categorize your information and your data to be made for you, so that it makes sense of what you're looking at. Because if you don't define your data, your information, which is what the technology allows you to analyze properly, then you can really end up being in a situation where you're comparing apples to oranges, and you're not really making informed decisions, because all of your systems are trying to give you the same information but with different definitions, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think new technology needs to cover some kind of gap, right, to be interesting. Because if you come up with something that doesn't make sense, or that is just something new but you don't know if it's going to work out, maybe then I would put it on a second table, right, to see what is. But if it covers like really a need, and there's so many needs that are uncovered. So if I was a new startup, I would just try to look for some of those gaps, like something, for example, where hoteliers spend a lot of manual work with. Like they spend hours and hours entering something manual into some system. If someone can automate that, that will make sense for me, right? Or et cetera, et cetera. And I think like very often there's a lot of new stuff coming out, but you don't, or maybe it's similar to what we already have or whatever. But if it really kind of can meet this need of the customer, then I would as a hotelier start looking at it. And then very often you have to kind of think a little bit out of the box, right? So, for example, I just saw in Spain a new system coming out that was an RMS system, but for leisure hotels, and was managing things that no other RMS system has ever managed before, like tour operator rates, etc., etc. So I found that really interesting and engaging as an example of someone is covering something that no one else has done before, right? And I think if someone can think of something like that, then it can be a winning new tech stack, and that's sexy as well, right? As well as me as a tech organization, if I want to be successful, I think we should think about things that are not there and that are covering something that is not covered to be successful and innovative and new and sexy to everyone. Sorry to just jump in like this.
Please,
that's okay.
not a problem at all.
I just think that is really interesting. It's about future-proofing your tech because it moves so quickly. Back to Sarah's point about integrations. If you're going to buy some tech, you know, in 2 years down the line, you're going to invest a lot of money in it, but then 2 years down the line, the integrations don't work, and then all of a sudden you have to upgrade. And the thing that springs to mind for me is about the customer data platforms now. So whilst 18 months ago, 2 years ago, CRM, it was all about that single guest experience in the CRM, when actually now a customer data platform that's going to pull together all your points of data and then integrate with different systems that can analyse, say, data in a more intelligent way. I mean, look how that's changed so quickly in 2 years. So I think the future-proofing aspect of it has to be taken into consideration. And it's taken some of the big legacy PMS companies 10 years to get to the point where integrations are actually now at the top of the agenda. 10 years, if not longer. It's astonishing.
That is a very long. That's a long time period, but extremely long time when it comes to tech. B, I'll let you get back in here. As far as that sort of longevity and as Susanne said, kind of future proofing your tech. How much can really change in a decade, and what sort of things? How do you make sure that you stay current?
I think, well, you need to really dedicate time on looking at what's happening around, really. And to the point of sexy tech, very often we refer to it as, it's not because it's sexy for your neighbor that it's good for you, basically. So that's quite important to always keep that in mind also. And if you want to be a step ahead, it's really communicating within your team like a little bit better and try to understand what's needed at this point in time, or whenever you have your commercial strategy in place, you know exactly where you want to be. Okay, so what do I need, or what kind of tech exists around me to help me to achieve that goal? I think that's quite quite key.
And I would add there that also sexy is not always about innovative and new and different. And yes, I did say in the beginning, my definition is a magical moment, but equally it's about security, and even cybersecurity is something that is spoken about a lot with all the different types of data thefts that happen nowadays, and it's a serious threat to the hospitality industry and just to the way that we even conduct business, but equally how guests check in. Everything is in technology, and I think one of the what should be at the forefront of everybody's mind is really that security aspect of making sure that whatever ecosystem you build, whatever tech you adopt, equally make sure that you are putting measures in place at your hotel to make sure that everything remains secure, and that you are not just investing a lot in artificial intelligence and different type of revenue systems that will replace manual tasks, but equally you're making sure that your basic technologies such as internet connections and so on are as secure as they can be, because in the end that could then be the breaking point.
And that your team is aware also. Like when you think about it, 3 years ago, everybody was talking about GDPR and how like, oh my God, we have to be careful of everything. Like how many of us have received like hundreds of emails during COVID where we're like, I never subscribed to that one. And it's been, I think it was kind of like eye-opening. People were like, oh, we don't care. And I'm like, well, actually you should care. And that's things that we've been talking about for a while. So technology can definitely help with that also. Like you give the right access, you have the right setup, etc. So you make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen, like it doesn't happen anymore. So I think overall, it's not a criticism, but some sales are really, really good in tech companies, and they kind of like make you, you want to buy it. Clearly, you can see it's nice. You can see that this person has done, like when you talk about CRM, this specific campaign, and it brought you that, etc. But you need to scratch a little bit more when you buy something. You really need to really go deep down and understand, like, okay, what you're telling me now, you actually don't have it. It's still in development. That's fine, but you need to be aware of that, for example, because the 3 months timeline, no matter how fast the company is, it usually doesn't stay at the 3 months timeline, and you probably don't want to be the guinea pig trying that at your property. Sometimes you want, but sometimes clearly for the sake of having like 1 or 2 months free, you don't want to do that. So it's about like making sure really that you have all the information in hand before you sign up to any system. Like I've done RMS changeover for a company. They had signed up for the system, not knowing that actually they were not managing the room types in the way they were doing. And you're like, well, how do you end up in this situation? You need to make sure that you know what are the priorities and why you want this tech, what do you want it to deliver to you, and then you pick up the right things. It's like when you buy a house, you want, I don't know, a garden and 2 bedrooms and then something else. Like you won't have everything, most probably, and the salesperson that is telling you that they have everything, I tend to challenge that. But you need to pick like, what do you think are the best things for you? And I think that's really, really key. That stuff.
Yeah, I think the dating analogy for this episode is perfect because as one of my favorite comedians, Chris Rock, says, when you start dating somebody, you're not meeting them, you're meeting their representative, right? So they're going to tell you what you want to hear, what they think you want to hear on the first couple of dates. So continuing with that theme, how do we're past date number 2? How do we take that next step and say, okay, you want to make a serious commitment to this tech? Where do you go from there once you start to identify the things you just said, B?
Well, I'm happy. I'm actually just going to use this housing analogy because I thought it was actually quite interesting. Where in London, for example, if you buy a house, the typical saying is there's 3 items. Either you look at the price, the location, or the size, and you have to pick 2. You will never find all 3. And to what B was saying, exactly that. You need to identify what are your 3 key elements, and then you have to pick 2 on what do you want to prioritize, and then you'll be able to find what it is that you want your system, what type of system would be best suited for you. And I have to say, there's actually quite a lot of systems that are coming. I mean, they've already existed for some time, but different types of websites, even that can that really allow like a Wikipedia for technology, which I think is really helpful because there's hundreds and hundreds. I mean, if not to say thousands of different systems that exist out there, and how do you find the right one can be a challenge.
Yep.
And unless like dating, where you're not asking their friends like how they are, I think for technology, I would find it weird. But in technology, you can. Like when you employ someone, you ask for references, right? So when you get a new system, well, why not? Like it should be like normal for you to be able to have a chat with like a company that is similar to you or that has similar questions or challenges, and being able to know exactly what it means. And I think from the vendor's point of view, it's not because the client is saying, yeah, we have issues with that and that the prospect is not going to buy it, but at least they know it. And then when you sign the contract, you know exactly what to expect, and you're not going to be frustrated because things are not working well. And I think that's also really important, of being a bit more transparent. So maybe from the client's point of view, to ask more stuff, and it's okay not to know. Like very often we feel bad not knowing exactly, okay, CRM, yeah, I know everybody's talking about it, but what exactly does it do, etc. So right. I think very often people are kind of scared of asking too many questions, and maybe things that are a little bit too stupid questions, but it's not stupid questions. You don't know, that's fine. Like they are the specialists, so they need to be able to guide you through that. And that's really important to do that before investing too much money.
And if I can add something here, I think what is very important is not only look for the technology, but also for the partnership with whatever company you work with. Because you could have the best technology, but then you don't know how to use it, or maybe there's different ways of using and you could tackle, etc. So I have worked with several consultancies before in a partnership, and I remember one of my colleagues there or partners, he always said, for us it's not about the technology only, it's about how we make things work together, right? So sometimes I don't mind if I work with your technology or one of your competitor, but it's all about how can we make it work for our joint customer. right? So I think another layer here to add on is to also look for or ask these questions. So how will you support us? Do you have someone who will look after me, who can define a strategy, maybe who also thinks a little bit more integrative approach like you do, right? So how does your technology integrate with the other technology, not just on a technical level, but also on a verbal level, right? How do you communicate to each other, and will you really be looking after me, right?
Yeah.
So then we go a little bit beyond the technology, but it's important because very often the functionality is maybe there with several companies, but not every company will be the same close to you and to the client than the other. So maybe
Yeah,
that's
to be honest, in a hotel, I prefer to have a system that maybe is less sexy. And yes, the reporting, I think about one of the CRS system I was using that, okay, it was a bit old fashioned, but the relationship with the account manager was so good that I was like, you know what, she's giving me everything I need. So I'm not going to change, even if potentially this other system is better, but it's like you know what you have, and you never know if the grass is greener somewhere else. So and really this account management, I think, is also quite key. So it's important, as Kat was mentioning on the comments, like, yeah, you need to make sure that you know these kind of things and how it does work.
Do you know one of the things, just on Kat's point about the salespeople, sometimes you're presenting to a board of directors or a hotel owner, and they're not users of the technology. So what happens is they buy into the sexy tech, shiny loveliness and of the technology, and then when it gets to the onboarding stage, the people that are actually going to be using that tech don't like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't go any further, the offboarding falls off, and you've just wasted all that time and money on a system that nobody's going to use. So getting the people in front of the salespeople to start with, I think, get the receptionist in. That's what I say. If you're in a hotel environment, bring in the reception team, the ones that have to use, the PMS or the payment system, or bring the right people in the room.
Yeah, and you need to make sure that they buy it in also, because like maybe that's actually a good system, but we've seen that very often people are kind of reluctant to get some new tools. So like the best way to get them to love it is for them to be involved into this process.
And I think particularly when you're trying to solve for operational issues, and sorry, Khristina, good to see you from the comments joining us. But I was just saying that I think when you're trying to resolve for operational issues, I think the best is to make sure that the people within operations actually try the technology, and the decision is not made from higher levels and then trickle down, to make sure that then the end users, that it doesn't just cause new problems, right? Like take chatbots, for example, and when you're trying to make a booking, you have it come up. If you have a question, you type what the question is, and the result is, please call our service, or please email us for more information. It's like, okay, great, you have it, but it's actually not doing what you want it to do, and it's just causing new problems, or even just creating the same problem but differently.
Looks like we have a special guest on the panel. Khristina, take it away. Good to see you.
How are you? Yeah, I know. Look, I couldn't let you have all the thunder, You were just in a room full of amazing, amazing women. That's all it is. No,
you figured, I wasn't outnumbered enough. Let me put a little more pressure on this guy.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely think,
Fair.
Sarah's point is very true. It is actually important that you get everyone's input in the business. And we've said this in the past on multiple revenue hacks, which is really important. And I think what's really interesting is that we're still in this space where there's no one doing a proper RFP. You're not getting everybody's input from the business and how to actually create that RFP of what you're looking for. Just like every PMS, every CRM, not one suits every property. So I think you really need to look at that from everyone's element, and does it tie in with your existing stack? So for instance, if you're already using Sage, does that tie in with Sage for your finance? Because if it doesn't, then you're going to do a costly integration with that, and it can take time and money. And a lot of these times right now, all the industries are strapped. Everyone is just pushed for time. Everyone's pushed for staff. So if you can find that one system that will actually help you with your operations, 100%, that's what you need right now. You need something that's going to help you on an operational, functional level, not just, a CRM, OTA Insider, or any type of rate shopper tool. You need to actually look at something now that's going to be proper project management across the board. I think that's huge. And again, relationships, can't say relationships enough. Christiane knows this. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a huge relationship person. So if you don't have that connection with people, and it's an emotional connection, it's not just a supporting connection or trying to sell them something. I actually said to someone this week, I actually am a no nonsense person. I will not sell you anything that you're not supposed to get. And I actually said on a call today with our global guys.
That's actually a little bit surprising.
I know.
I never got that
You would have
impression.
thought. But it's so true. You need to be very out there. You need to be very honest. And if you don't think your item is right for that hotel, say it to them right now. Don't be investing any more time into something, because all that's going to happen is if you sell a tool to a property and it's not going to be right, your name is tarnished.
That's absolutely true. I mean, I think that's something you certainly have to keep in mind. It's a relationship. I mean, again, we're going back to the whole dating thing, but it's a long-term relationship. Hopefully, if you're picking the right tech, this is something that's going to stick around for a while. So you've got to make sure you're not only the system is right, but the people that you're working with are people that you want to continue to maintain this relationship with. Well, we got a couple minutes here left in the show. Any final thoughts on this? Any last pieces of advice that you want to give to hotels out there that are looking to maybe implement tech or make a change? What can we give them to make that final decision for that long-term commitment? Sara, I'll go with you since you just got engaged. I'll put you on the spot. You just made a long-term commitment. You made that choice. What were you looking at?
Yes. Well, I would. I would say that focus on simplicity. I think technology is typically, in general, just a topic that everyone finds scary, or like we were saying earlier about not knowing what questions to ask, or really not being afraid of asking questions. I think it's really about focusing on the simplicity and how to make it easy for your guests, how to make it easy for yourself working at the hotel. Find a system with which is easy to build a relationship. So focusing on simplicity. Because there's a lot of new technology that's going to keep coming out there. Like artificial intelligence is something, it's no longer new, right? It's everywhere that we see, but how is it going to continue evolving? We're now talking about augmented reality and the impact that that's going to have in the future of travel. Like imagine you could one day put on those goggles that allow you to access a virtual reality space, and you can visit the room that you've booked ahead of staying there. Now, is that going to replace my experience of actually traveling there? No, but it's going to, allow you to make a different type of a more informed decision, essentially, on which room that you actually want to book and the room type, and look at the view outside of the window. So I think the focus should always be on simplicity and thinking about what's coming out there and the potential ways that you can make sure that you use it at your hotel before your competitors. And that would be my parting thought.
Love it. How about you, B?
I think we just need to mention something like some tools are really sexy and they work and they're really good. So it's not like whatever is shiny from the outside is not good. And they should all look like that, actually. But it's more like, let's scratch a little bit more and make the work that is not necessarily fun, but actually is going to be so much beneficial for you as a hotelier. Is like, know what you really need and what you want and how you want it to work and interact with other systems. And then it's going to be much clearer on deciding where you want to spend money. Like everybody is now very conscious about not spending too much. Don't go for the cheapest one. Don't necessarily go for the most expensive one. Go for the one that really fits like your purpose and what you need. I think that's really key.
Susanne? Is she frozen? Did she freeze like that? That's a. Most people don't get frozen like that. She looks good. Most people are frozen.
She looks really good.
Yeah. She looks like she's really sitting paying attention. That's awesome. All right, we'll go with you, Christiane. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, so I just wrote down a few keywords that are sticking with me. So I think one of the things I'm sticking with is the one source of truth thing, like if possible to get things integrated and have some tools power the others, right? Doesn't have to be from the same provider, but it kind of can be I power distribution or the other way around, etc. So can this be kind of one thing? The other thing, or someone is ringing my doorbell. Sorry if you hear that. You know.
That's okay.
The other thing that I find really important and sexy about tech is the innovation part, the covering needs that are not being covered in the market. I think this is what every tech company should be looking for, to just keep innovating ourselves, right, in the industry, because I think there's still a lot of things that we can do and that we can think differently. And then also the emotional relationship. I love that. The emotional relationship is two ways, right? So it's not just about selling or just about supporting or something like this. It's really like get into a partnership with the whoever you work with, right? And that is both ways. And I will keep it to these three.
All right, Khristina.
I definitely think it's invest in the future. Like I said in the comments before I joined, you're looking at a tech stack that will actually serve you more than 6 months to 2 years. You need to be investing in smart technology that is actually progressing forward, but that also is constantly evolving as you're evolving. So if you've got a PMS right now and you're looking at getting into cloud technology, definitely do it. That is the space that everything is going from now. And it's all going to have open API integration in the future, but just know what you need 100%. And as B said, I don't think she said it in this one, but she definitely said it in previous revenue hacks, test, test, and test. Get loads of free demos, get loads of free use out of systems. Lord knows I actually didn't know you could do this until B said it to me. I must have tested everything after B said it to me during revenue hacks in 2020. So definitely test everything 100%. Don't take the sales manager or the account manager for every word. You need to use it yourself.
Fantastic. Susanne, are you back? We can't tell if you're just frozen in another phenomenal pose or not.
It's like watching Mario back in the days where you'd be like watching it on a computer, you'd be pressing the X button and it just wasn't moving.
Oh, okay. Yeah, look, she's having some tech issues, but she's clearly hearing us, so that's fantastic. This is the best tech outage we've had so far.
Yeah. You know what? This always happens on tech shows. Remember, Sara?
That is true.
That is true.
That is true.
Hey, she's freezing in a very sexy way. So
I know. Look at this. She looks like an 80s video. Well, listen, as we are still on this topic of, sexy tech, it is time for your G-Spot minute. Right at the end. Where it should be.
Can you hear me?
Hey guys, Calvin Taloka here with your G-Spot minute for this week. And this week, we're all about setting realistic goals. We're at the beginning of the year where people have set goals and resolutions for this calendar year. And you want to make sure that those are actually attainable. So that way you're not getting frustrated if you don't hit an unrealistic goal. For example, if your aspiration in this industry is to become a general manager and you put that down, but you just became a guest service agent and your entry level in Q4 of last year, it's probably not achievable for you to attain that goal this year. So you want to make sure that the goals you're setting are realistic and attainable in a reasonable time frame. And a couple other things about goals, make sure that they are quantifiable. You want to be able to put a date to it. If there's a certain RevPAR index you want to achieve at your property, a certain salary you want to make sure that you write those down. So that way, when you look back, you can easily identify if you've hit that goal or not. And lastly, this one I think is a crucial tip. Make sure that you tell someone. When you tell someone and you express your goal to another person, that external pressure can help it make it a true goal and not just something that would be nice to have. Man, that guy's smart. I changed my shirt really quick. Thank you guys.
Even with your wardrobe change and everything.
Listen, it's show business. It's show business. You got to be ready. Well, this was a great show. I appreciate all of the insights, excuse me, that I got from you guys this week. Tech has never been really my niche in the industry. So, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience got a lot out of this. Thank you for our veteran members. Good to see you guys again. And our new panel members, Sara, Christiane, good to see you. Khristina, always a pleasure. Don't forget to tune in next week. Be aware of the time change. This is our new time, mainly because, like Khristina said, I'm a diva and I need some extra sleep. So I got them change the time of the show. You know, that's how we do things around here at Revenue Hacks. See you next time.
That's awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.